Greetings, adventurers! Welcome to another episode of the Paranormal Industrial Complex. My name is Dallas Deluxe, and today, my friends, oh baby, have I got a good one for you. I am talking government conspiracies, I am talking alternate realities, and I'm talking everybody's favorite, mental illness. Oh yes, sirree, we're talking about the one and only Philadelphia experiment. Let's go get it. It all started October 28th, 1944. The Philadelphia shipyard, the USS Eldridge, a destroyer escort, was involved in some very secretive high-tech experiments, early experiments in invisibility. Now, here's the story. In full view of another ship while docked at the shipyards, the ship turned on its machine, was enveloped in a green fog, and then disappeared. Now, that would have been enough already to to qualify for high strangeness, but it reappeared 200 miles away at the shipyards at Norfolk, Virginia. Now, having teleported there. Now, here's the thing. To make matters worse, when the ship reappeared, things did not go so well. Sailors rematerialized in other locations of the ship. They rematerialized fused with the bulkhead. They rematerialized inside out. And some of them just disappeared. It is a crazy, crazy tale. Now, this came to the forefront in 1955. Morris Jessup, the UFO writer, got a letter from a man claiming to be alternately named Carl Allen and sometimes Carlos Allende. Allende. Anyway, he put forth the idea that he was a sailor on the Eldridge, and he went through that experiment and witnessed these just insane things. And afterwards, that the government had brainwashed him and the other sailors so that they would forget it, MK Ultra style. Now he rants and raves and rants and raves for pages and pages and pages. And I've seen some of these rantings, and they're pretty out there. He chalks up his mental instability, to this process that he went through. Now, here's the thing. Now, Jessup writes him off as a kook, and if you read some of his writings, you would be forgiven for thinking the same thing. But in 1979, Charles Berlitz, who had just written the book The Bermuda Triangle, writes a book about the Philadelphia experiment with William Moore, and he brings some of those letters to light, and they are some crazy, crazy tales. Now, here's the thing. The whole idea is that, now I kind of touched off on my video about the Montauk Project, but the idea is that, in trying to generate invisibility, you're using very, very high amounts of electromagnetism, and when you generate that much electricity, that much magnetism, you split the space-time continuum, and that's what they allege happened here. It was split. The ship teleported. It went into hyperspace and was teleported, and the sailors, they suffered some serious ill effects. Now, in the book, Berlitz talks about some of the science behind this, and he references the work of Tom Townsend Brown, who was working for the Navy at that time. And there's a chapter in the book about his work. He was an anti-gravity researcher for years and years. I think some of his stuff shows up in the Bob Lazar's confession, but I'm not sure on that. But anyway, so what happens is that you have this situation where all these crazy things happen, and Carl Allen is allegedly, at least for several years, the only person to remember it. Now, everybody else he claims has been brainwashed. Now, in 1988, what's his name? Al Buchan. Al Buchan comes out, and he claims that he was on the Eldridge as well. Now, his claims are a little bit different because according to him, he claims that when the ship split time and space, that it also split reality. That is to say, there became, whoops, looks like a dead squirrel right there. There became multiple versions of the sailors that were involved in that split. So for example, Al Buchan then, he says, was, sort of apprehended and programmed by the government at that point to be like a government agent for them. What he did, that they would have multiple versions of him in the same timeline, in the same reality as him, operating sort of parallel on the same world. Really crazy, heady stuff. Check him out, Al Buchan. But here's the thing. After 40 some odd years, this allegedly happened in 1943, Al Buchan comes out in 1988 after having seen the film made in 1984 and thinks that this is, something that happened to him. Now, here's the thing. Here's the problem that a lot of people have with this. And I'm going to argue on the other side here for a moment, because I'm just telling you right now, after 40 years, there's really only been two people that claim to have, had anything to do with this situation. One is Al Buchan, okay, who claims to, making claims that there are alternate versions of him out there working for the government, doing all sorts of shady things. And the other is Carl Allen, who is mentally ill and has been hospitalized many times for his mental illness. Other than that, there's really no evidence to support it at all. And you'd think after all the hundreds of sailors that were on that ship, not one of them has come forth and said, oh yeah, I got, teleported into an alternate dimension as well. Not a single one has ever come out and said that. Kind of interesting. Additionally, the skeptics will say, well, hang on a second. Now, the Eldridge, along with many other ships, was involved in some electromagnetism operations, but that was pretty much common operations back in that time. The ship was in all likelihood degaussed. Okay? A gauss is a unit of magnetism, so to degauss something means to demagnetize it. Why is this valuable for a ship? Because the mines that were in the ocean are magnetic. They are drawn to the metal in the ship. So if you can remove the magnetic properties of the ship, the mines won't be attracted to it, and nobody will get blown up. This is good. So the ship was probably degaussed. Now, as for the ship disappearing and then reappearing later, some people will say, well, that's just kind of a, a misinterpretation. What really happened was that in those days, if you're traveling from Philadelphia to Norfolk, you kind of have to go around Delaware. And that was really dangerous at the time due to all the U-boats operating in the area. Now, here's the thing. However, the Navy could use the Chesapeake-Delaware Canal, which is a small canal running across a very narrow section of Delaware between the Chesapeake Bay and the Delaware River, and thus cutting off basically an entire day from their journey. So they could get from point A to point B, a lot quicker. I don't know if that really satisfies the whole idea of the ship teleporting from point A to point B, but it does explain how they got there a lot faster. Really, the interesting part for this case really is not so much, it's partly the claims, but really how effectively it gets sucked up into the cultural zeitgeist. Because this case for me exists in really the nexus of three different, actually in this case, four different unbelievably important variables. Now, for me, in order for a case to have real stickiness, it's got to exist at the nexus of three things: science fact, science fiction, and, cultural relevance. So in this case, we have science fact, we have the degaussing, we have the high, properties of magnetics, or rather, we have the applications of high amounts of electromagnetism, but you also have this idea of, teleportation and alternate realities and things that, for the most part up till now have really been relegated to science fiction. Now, on the third variable, of course, you have, the cultural relevance. This case gets sucked immediately into the cultural zeitgeist, okay? 1984, 5 years after the book. Of course, the film with Michael Pare comes out. People pick up on it. It's very popular. Of course, there's episodes of the X-Files about it. We see the guy where the guy is fused to the ship and everything. Nick Lay, who plays Krychek, later stars in 2012 remake of the same film. So it's very popular, and it gets stuck in the public consciousness for quite some time. Add to that the fourth variable, which in this case is historical fact. In other words, winning the war. So you have four independent variables all operating together, all, more or less coming together to form this, this nexus of things which are just unforgettable. And so it gets stuck in the public consciousness just for decades, I mean, it's just amazing. Now, how much faith you want to put into it, I'm going to, leave that up to you. We only have two people who say they were there. One is mentally ill, and the other one tells a tale that's so far out there, it really strains, credibility, or credulity, rather, and credibility. But it's a wild, wild tale, definitely worth your time, and definitely something that's going to be with us for a long, long time. Anyway, this is Dallas Deluxe. Have a magnificent summer afternoon. I'm going to enjoy myself as I sail off into the sunset here in the dark end of the paranormal industrial complex. Look at it. Yep, I took a wrong turn.